What's up, guys? I want to answer the question of what is the best state to work surplus funds and overages in. I've talked about this before several times, but the question keeps getting asked, so here's another video for you. Here's the truth, guys. Now, there's a couple different questions, right? There's what is the best state? What is the easiest state to get started? Two different things. And the bottom line is, first, I would have to ask you, well, what do you consider best? Like, what is your criteria to determine what a good state or the best state to work surplus funds and overages? What's your criteria? Okay. Is it number of leads? Is it the amount of overage available to claim? Is it whether the counties are friendly to third parties, whether you have to use an attorney or not, whether there's fee limitations or not, access to data, if there's lists available or you have to create your own? Like, what is your criteria? How do you determine if a state is a good state to work? And so when you ask the question, what is the best state? Well, you have to say, well, what is your criteria? And that would provide a better answer. But here's the bottom line. I'll tell you the truth. There is no easy state. There are things about a state that could be easier than another. The reality is every single state has its pros and its cons when it comes to surplus funds and overages, okay? So the notion that there's a one-size-fits-all best state to go after does not exist. It doesn't exist. I've only done deals in about 15 different states so far. So there's many states that I've never done deals in that could be wonderful states to work in, but I just don't know because I've not done deals there yet. But let me give you some rules of thumb to help you determine maybe states that you may want to pursue, or just to help you determine, when you're looking at a state, is this a state I want to avoid or a state that I would like to go and do business in? So rule of thumb number one is, if what's important to you is that there's a lot of leads to work, there's a lot of volume, there's a lot of overages to recover, if that's what's important, then what you're going to want to do is target states or markets with a very high population. The bottom line is, the more people there are in a county or a state, the more overages there are. Because the more people there are, the more foreclosures and tax sales there are, and those are the things that generate overages, right? So that if amount of leads is important, then you'll want to target states or markets that have a highly concentrated population, okay? So that would mean places like California, New York, Florida, parts of Texas, Georgia. These states have areas with a lot of people, right? So there's a lot of overages in those places. Now, if what's important to you is that counties are friendly and they don't mind, third parties, and you don't necessarily have to use an attorney, I always suggest using an attorney whenever possible, but there are places like Florida or California tax sale overages where you could get away without using an attorney. So if that's important to you, places like that would be good. Places that you wouldn't want to pursue if you are trying to avoid using an attorney, which again, I strongly discourage you, just use an attorney, guys. strongly, strongly encourage you to use an attorney, okay? It'll make your life easier. But if you're dead set on not using an attorney to save costs, there are places like California tows and Florida tows that you can get away with it. What else? What other criteria? Access to data is a big one, okay? So if you are creating your own lists, or you want a state that has lists of leads that are already built for you so that you don't have to go build your own list, you can just download a list from a website, or you can request it directly from the county and they will provide it to you. If you're looking at those types of areas, then again, there are places like Georgia and Florida and California that they list stuff online. Very easy to get some of the information. Here's the thing though. There's always a flip side. So here's another rule of thumb to remember. And this would go for probably any market you go into. The easier it is to access the data, the easier it is to get a list or to get information, to create a list and to do your due diligence, the easier it is for you to get that information, the more competition you will be dealing with, okay? So I've mentioned Florida a lot in this video. Florida, let me tell you guys, Florida is a wonderful state because there's a ton of people there. There's a ton of tax sales. There's a ton of foreclosures. There's a ton of leads. Florida is one of the most user-friendly places to access information. They're extremely transparent. It's very easy to get court records, title research, leads. It's all online. Most counties are all online in Florida. So it's super easy to get the information. But what does that mean? It means there's a low barrier of entry, and Florida is one of the most competitive markets in the entire nation, in my opinion. Okay? And I have some cases in Florida right now. And so again, there's a flip side. If there's a pro, there's a con that comes with it. So the pro of Florida, easy access to information, lots of leads, easy to get leads. The con, there is a ton of people in Florida that are trying to recover overages. But you may go to another state in another county and find very little people working that area because it is extremely difficult to get the information. So when you are looking at, okay, when you're considering a state or a market, a question to ask yourself is, what are the problems that I personally want to deal with? What are the problems that I want to solve? And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, if you're working a state like New York is a good example of this. New York, very hard to get the information. Counties are tough to deal with. The info is kind of, it's not where you would expect it to be, okay? As a result of that, you have to solve that problem. You have to be able to solve the problem of getting information that you need to do your research and to generate leads. Me personally, I love that problem. I'll take that problem every day because I would prefer to work a less competitive market, but that's just me. Now, some of you may be very creative individuals and you like don't get me wrong, I like the fight too, right? But you thrive on competition. It's what drives you. And so you may love a place like Florida because you are a competitive individual and you want to find ways to overcome the competition and to beat out the competition. And so if you're that type of person, you would probably love Florida. So those are just some examples. And those are some rules of thumb to consider when looking at specific markets to do this business in. So we talked about, if you want a place with lots of leads, choose a place that has a lot of people living there. The second rule, if the easier it is to access information, the lower the barrier of entry, which means the more competition you're going to deal with. And the flip side of that is also true. The harder it is to get information, the harder it is to access data and lists, the less competition is going to be there. And then as far as whether or not a county is friendly or whether or not you have to use an attorney, that's going to be determined by the laws. And so you need to familiarize yourself with the laws. And that's one reason why I provide a 50-state guide in my program, so that you can quickly educate yourself on all of the laws in all 50 states. And you can quickly point out, okay, this state is not friendly, or this state has a fee limitation. I don't want to even deal with that state. And you just cross it off your list and process elimination, and you can choose a market that way, okay? That's something I provide, okay? So that's it, guys. Those are some rules of thumb that you can follow to help you determine what is a good market for you to get started in. Because we are all motivated differently, we're all driven differently, we all have different skills, different interests. Some of us, you know, we are very analytical, we like to do research. Others of us, we like to thrive and we're more extroverted and want to, you know, beat out the competition. It just depends on the type of person you are. So I hope that helps as far as surplus funds, choosing the best state. Again, there is no best state. Every state has its pros and every state has its cons. You just have to decide, what cons do you want to deal with? What problems do you want to deal with? What obstacles do you want to figure out how to overcome? And the obstacles are dealing with competition, or dealing with unfriendly counties, dealing with fee limits, dealing with access to information. In fact, to wrap this up, next week, I believe September 30th, I'll be having a training kind of going over some of the obstacles, and also I'm going to be talking about how you can double your income in this business by working something that I call pre-overages, okay? So join me next week for that training. It'll be Thursday. Time is to be determined. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you are on the email list. You can join that at overagesyndicate.com, because that's where I'll make the announcement next week and send out the link for the training, okay? And I'll post it here on the channel, of course. But that is going to be a very valuable training for those of you that want to double your income in this business. So I'll see you there.